What time do you have with us?
5:01.
So we call the meeting to order at 5:01. We have a quorum. In the absence of Fred Berenger, I would ask that Mike Aurelia be seated as the voting member this evening. And I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 8th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
A second? Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor of approval? Opposed? Abstaining? Minutes are approved. There's no one on the line, so I guess we do not have any public comment this evening. Moving right along. And we kind of passed it over, but Michael, due to his multiple hats that he wears, has resigned as vice chair, and we will have an election to fill that position. Is anybody interested in the position? I do have a nomination, but I wanted to open up to anybody beforehand. I would nominate Ann Redfield for the position. Would someone second that?
Second.
Okay. Shall we vote? All in favor of Ann? Aye. Opposed? No. And given that Ann is now our secretary, that opens up the position of secretary. And I talked to Joan Meek. Is anybody interested in being secretary? I talked to Joan Meek, and she's interested in taking on the position. So in her absence, I would nominate her. I have a second to her nomination.
Second.
And all in favor of Joan? Aye. And I would also like to, at this point, it's not an official position, but it is a position that I take seriously and really appreciate. And Andrea has taken over kind of working with Isaac and Peter in our stewardship. So I would like to basically confer as chair the title of chief steward upon Andrea. So she is now our chief steward and outreach officer. I think Andrea's doing a terrific job. Unfortunately, I can't give you a bump in pay. But thank you for taking that.
You double what I do now, right?
Yeah. So at that point, Andrea sent a nice report, and we have Peter's report, but I want to kind of go at it a little bit a la carte. So maybe we could start, Andrea, if you want to introduce our new steward.
Absolutely. So this is Isaac, and I'm just looking how to pronounce your name by looking at the word. Kazukin?
It's pretty close, yeah. Kazukin.
Kazukin.
Yes.
Kazukin.
Silent H.
Yes.
And Isaac came to the Hikers Happy Hour, had a chance to meet some people there, and then walked with Peter Norris, who's also at the Hikers Happy Hour, so they could formally meet, and I think has been out already, and there are a number of activities that he will hit with Peter, and as I get into my report, there will be more discussion as to trail maintenance and upkeep that Isaac and Peter could do, that we as a commission may just do ourselves as a small, who's ever available work party to knock it off. That needs a little bit more man-woman power, and then others that will open up to the community at large / environmental club that will be planned and previewed for the upcoming year. But maybe you want to say something else about yourself?
Maybe just briefly discuss your background and your interest in the job.
Yeah, I got my degree in biology from the University of Massachusetts Amherst in 2016, and then pursued a career studying birds. I specialized in salt marsh sparrows, and I went to grad school for that. Didn't end up completing grad school, but I wanted to go back to studying, or sort of being in nature again. Ever since I left that field, it's exciting to be working outdoors again and working close to the ocean again. Yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up here, and I'm really, really excited to work as much as possible.
I think that Isaac will make a nice compliment to Peter. He gives us the insurance if Peter happens to be traveling with her. In fact, I think Peter's gone tomorrow through Monday. Not that we have anything, but Peter in the past had been going to Florida for half a year. He's back in Connecticut as a resident again, but he has family in California, and he goes out there for periods of time as he's retired. So we'll have Isaac in Peter's absence. We have projects that we frankly haven't been able to get to, checking out the numerous properties that we own that were given to us as part of subdivision applications and so forth that we really haven't looked at, that we want to look at. Anne will not have a student intern at Ferry Landing, but she will have Isaac as an assistant. And we have a new property, Horseneck Creek, that we need to do some research and education with, and I think Isaac will be good at that, particularly with his background in birding. And Michael, yes,
I'm sure you do. I banded them not far from here, actually.
And then the other thing is, Michael's been interested in vernal pools, and maybe you can work with him on that to try to start coming with an identification of where they're located on our properties. So, would you like to talk a little bit about CLC Summit, Andrea?
Yes. So the Connecticut Land Conservation Council, of which we are a member, they oversee all the land trusts in Connecticut, had their initial stewardship summit meeting, and the broad topics were volunteer management, enforcement and encroachment, and climate smart stewardship and restoration. And there were probably 25 different towns represented, and almost as many volunteers. So there was a robust conversation about volunteers. How do you get them? How do you retain them? How do you engage them, whether they're your board members or people within the community? Enforcement and encroachment, it was a little bit of a delicate subject because in towns like Wilton or Greenwich, where there's blatant encroachment of homeowners along the border of the land trust that there's also a so-called steward for, there's some conflict of interest, and they're real muckety-mucks, and some of them are big donors, so it's very delicate as to how the land trust can approach them. And climate smart stewardship and restoration discuss mitigation, some short-term strategies and longer ones. I was just re-looking at my notes because some of them were I'm trying to highlight some of my takeaways. But one of the takeaways is that one place to draw volunteers, whether it's work parties or expanding future, and this would align with you, board members are established groups, which we kind of know, but it still requires cultivating your scouts, your environmental clubs, even your middle schools or your ballet class, your contacts, people who you know. They could be engaged, but you have to modify and tier the program that you're working with accordingly. There's also a lot of money out there. Oak Master Gardeners is another, and there's but there's also a lot of money out there through CLC, through Connecticut Land Conservation Council, and DEEP also offers like a 1-year free forestry management plan, apparently, and that could serve as a basis for NRCS, which is I don't remember what it stands for, Natural Resources Conservation Services or something. that CLCC helps also administer their grants to groups. But having a forest management plan is a very highly encouraged approach, even if nothing initially comes of it. You have your woods assessed, and you can learn about succession planting, invasive species. Alone don't qualify for a management plan, but it's a part of it. But you could, like the beech trees on Ames, those are all being wiped out. And if you look at the age of the forest, they're all pretty much the same age and not with a lot of new planting. And if you are going to burn, there's some education behind that, but just plans of that nature. The Wilton Land Trust had an intern that mapped all its trails and open space through some GIS program. I haven't had the chance to go on the website yet, but the guy, David McCarthy, is will be more forthcoming, but apparently you could access the website and tap on the maps and had some instruction about using geolocation. Some land trusts use a more team approach to their work parties, so you might be a bridge guy, you might be the invasive species team, you might be the pollinator plant pathway people. And that way, it's not like you're obligated to go to each one. Some of these land trusts were a lot larger and had more acreage, so it was just easier to manage. But Cornell programs has a variety of community science where it's identifying nests or vernal pools, and they offer trainings, and they can be tasked to help facilitate your knowledge as a group and get other people interested and involved. It may be a one-off. It's like, oh, I just want to do vernal pools, so let's get Cornell to come and do a thing. Another point was first aid kits. We should have them.
What was that again?
First aid kits.
Yep.
We should have them. We, as in our land groups, the person heading the program and the person at the end. It should be mandatory, whether we take it to have them at least, and be familiar with some of its use, just because. And CPR training can be offered through the land groups to the boards, so that if Anne's trained but she's not there, then you know what to do, that kind of thing. And there is, I haven't read through it entirely, but there's one of the speakers is from a land trust up in the Berkshires, and there's a stewardship workday checklist. There is I got you one, and I got one for Peter too, but I'll give him. And then tips for planning a trail workday. So the Berkshire Natural Resource Council, a volunteer handbook. I will read through it and highlight some interesting.
Is that online by any chance?
It probably is.
What's it called again?
The Berkshire Natural Resource Council. Some of it is kind of obvious, like when we have our work parties, the way we advertise it and announce it, do we follow up, do we get emails, because it's a cultivation of relationships with the people at large. There's also a resource called Nature Groupie, I think it is. Nature Groupie, it's resources galore about anything and everything from all of these various topics, put it that way. I'll just make it short from that standpoint. But it was one of the better trainings I would say I attended, and there were speakers that led it, but all of the land trusts who wanted had a chance to also speak. And
who was the coordinator for CLCC?
Ricky
Bentley.
Yes. Ricky Bentley, yeah. And Aaron Leland. was there as well, but Ricky was kind of the climate guy.
Yep.
And then I have an email with different resources of DEEP and all the groups that I mentioned that I could also send out, so if anyone wants to take a deeper dive as well, they can. And it might be something for you and Peter more so, but it's edifying for all of us.
I think we'll get into it. We're going to have to get into it. I wish Russell were here for this conversation, but I find it interesting that Wilton kind of used GIS to map out all the trails. I have to say I'm pretty disappointed in how difficult Lisa Nicolai's been to contact.
Oh, and the Avenza map, I am not a fan.
Well, we can, that was, I mean, it's a trial. We can go with some other program, but I'm hoping that we're not going to have to start from scratch to recreate all our files to put them in some type of GIS program for our maps. Her computer died. I hope that she puts some of her files either on a backup medium or in the cloud or somewhere. Written to her twice, and she's, I'm so sorry I haven't gotten back to you. Let me look at stuff and I'll let you know. And it's been some significant gaps between my attempts to reach her. I don't know how urgent it is for you guys to do math, so the one thing I want to do is I have had somebody edit the inside text for us, but I need to basically redo the math on here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I had mentioned after I think one of the hikes that I had gone on that they had said, this is a new trail. I'm thinking, that's not on our map. And so I had contacted Edie, who was actually with George, and said, is this a real trail, or do you know about this trail? And she said, we have to do new maps. But I think that the guy, I think she said that the other has retired or something, and so she's looking at something else. But I like I said,
well, there's two people. There's Lisa, who was actually a photographer. She was our steward before Peter Norris, and she's been doing the maps. And there's another gentleman, Ed Zebrin, is that the name? So Ed used to be the owner of the printing company that does he does tributaries for you. He used to do the design for that. He used to be the owner of a print shop in Essex that comes out with our daily quarterly report. He's
he moved.
He's been in Maryland for a number of years. He and I and who's your former secretary? Leah. Leah and I did a number of projects, including putting this together. And I have his actual files from this. That if you need them, you can. But he's in his mid-80s, and he just doesn't want to do it anymore. So what I'm going to do is kind of scout around and see if I can find someone to do our maps for us. But the one thing I need to find out is, are we going to have Lisa's files to work from, or are we going to have to basically start from scratch and recreate them, which would be a real headache. And I don't know what the justification was, but I know that Melinda Kronfeld had one of the shape files, and I wish that we had given them to him, but for some reason, previous administration did not want to share those files with her. So the only person I know that actually has them is Lisa. So as I say, I hope we can recreate them. And I'm going to get into the whole GIS issue in a minute, but that's kind of a little bit of a sidetrack. Did you have more about that?
Not about the summit. No.
Okay. So let's talk about some individual properties then. So I kind of pushed Evan a little bit, and I made a number of calls, and I kind of stepped on Evan's toes a little bit to get some quotes for Champlain North. Maybe pass this on. That is the Barbizon tree. So thank you. That's the trail, and these are the branches that overhang the trail. So we have quotes for two options. One is to just take down the branches that are over the trail, and we can get that done for roughly $500. The other option, I'm not sure why Evan had this quote, it was basically to delimb the trees. So you have basically maybe 4 or 5 feet coming from the main branch and everything is cut. Other than that, I talked to Evan, and Evan says he'd rather not do that. And I talked to Fred this morning, and Fred said he'd like to leave the tree as much of the tree up as possible. But I want to basically ask you folks, what's your preference? It would be my preference also to leave the tree looking as much like it was when it was living as possible, but to eliminate the safety hazard, particularly the branches hanging over the trail, so we don't need to reroute the trail.
We would need to reroute the trail.
What's that?
We would or would not need to?
We would not have to if we cut those branches off.
All right, okay,
Yeah, this is my crude drawing. That's roughly where the trail is.
Yes, all right, that's what I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so, and Save a Tree in Old Saybrook can do that this month, which would be great. Number one, it eliminates a potential hazard as soon as possible, and number two, we can do that this fiscal year. They're giving us a price that's basically a public service price, but it is going to take some wrangling for them to get in there with a little mini crane, so that's primarily what the expense is.
Well, that seems like the best option.
Yeah. Okay, I will give them a call tomorrow and set that in motion.
Just to add to that, I think the two limbs that are hanging over the trail look the most unsturdy if you look at them. The other limbs look like they're fairly, if it's an oak, and the oak should, if it's dry, survive quite a while. But those two limbs are peeling bark and look unsafe.
Yeah. So the gentleman that gave you the quote, and I presume will be overseeing this work, is Peter Edmondson. He's a really good arborist. In fact,
Doesn't he live here?
He lives in town.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's actually doing some work for Evan's brother, which is how Evan happened to reach out to him. So we do have a sign. We put up a sign near the Barbizon sign that says "Be careful." Should we put another one along the trail, right kind of where those ranches were, or not?
Well, if we're going to
If we're going to
If we did that
done
done this month, I would think probably not.
Just basically saying, don't go under the tree. Or you think this one we have?
I think the one we have is sufficient. We put that in, and it seems, the sooner they get here, the better.
Yeah, and we should move the kiosk.
I think the kiosk has been moved.
Okay.
Yes.
Kiosk has been moved.
Yeah, Peter's taking that down.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the old kiosk is moved, yeah.
Yeah, that's Congress. We can go extra to it.
Yeah, I did see that.
So did you have some things on Champlain North, did you want to mention those, Andrew?
Yes, so, I knew about the tree, so that check on the tree, rerouting does not need to be done there. Kiosk is moved. The oak seedlings and the anthill fences, Peter had only enclosed one of the anthills with stakes that he has from his own stash. So I do need to purchase more anthill fencing, chicken fencing, and I could show you, it'll take me a minute, but I will show you before you leave the picture of the anthill fencing that Peter sent.
He showed me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I wrote him, and I should also just remember to copy you, but he feels that that's something that both of you could do.
Yeah.
If it were rerouting, that would require all of us just so that Evan and Mike could say, oh yeah, wetlands here, up and down, and, the erosion thing, but that's not an issue.
One of the issues with I think the primary issue with the anthills is that when Public Works goes in there and mows, they've driven over them. Well,
There's a sign right there?
Well, that was
that's
before.
just one.
Yeah.
There's one sign.
Yeah, and there had until fairly recently, there was no signs, and it was just a clump of dirt, and in all due respect for the guy, he's mowing it, and he probably didn't know what was there.
And there's actually one that we should hit before the other tree people go in, because as you're coming closer to the bench, right before you get to the bench and the signs and the tree, there's a big one on the left, but that's a little bit under leaves and up a ways, but that would easily be crushed.
I was wondering, if the main issue is keeping them from mowing, rather than fencing in the additional ones, maybe putting just a stake with the tip of it painted red, like you get when shopping centers for the plowing in the winter or something like that. You think that might, and we could let Public Works know, anywhere you see a sign, just give it a little perimeter, stay away from it.
That could work.
Yeah.
Is that the only threat to the anthills?
As far as I know, I don't know that there's any natural predators or anything. I mean,
But I mean,
the one,
I
yeah.
don't think predators.
Yeah. I mean, the two threats are obviously somebody mowing or somebody being malicious and vandalizing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the fence is not going to really help for the latter anyway. I think if someone is intent on doing that. But what we do need to consider is, I don't know if you were going to mention it, Andrea, is the baby barbizons.
Yes.
Because they were, in the past, have definitely been browsed by deer.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that would, each individual doesn't need to be looped in, but maybe having a little more of a perimeter fencing around it under the tree.
We could maybe come up with what we think are going to be the strongest and the best descendants, and maybe just fence in 3 or 4 of them and see how they do. I talked to Evan. I mean, we're just assuming. They were about 4. So last spring they were about 4 feet high, and they're probably. And they can grow a couple feet a year. Would you say, Mike?
They can. Yeah, it's not too bad.
The issue is I was talking to Evan, is you assume they were from the barbizon, but you don't know. I mean, there's other oaks here. Exactly. Squirrels can get acorns from all over. We'll just pretend they're baby barbizons.
The acorns don't fall far from too far. On the anthills, I think just in the 4 years that I've been here, they seem to be expanding. And so I don't think they're having any trouble expanding. I think the colony, if they're related, who knows, they might even be connected because they're not that far apart. But they will rebuild any anthill that's not.
They're pretty good builders.
It's just debris coming up, right? So they're not necessarily dying as a result of, maybe you lose a few during the incident, but other than that, most of them are underground, and that's just debris coming up. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Most of the damage is a tire tractor going over that, which maybe compacts it a little bit, but if they're mostly underground, as you said, they can get themselves back.
Yeah, and they're obviously, if they are connected, there are other. I mean, I think there's 3 or 4 more significant mounds in that field around there. We need more signs or something.
I think we counted like 19, 16.
there's a lot, but it's, I mean, unless I'm just, you know, didn't see them before, but it just seems like there are more.
Mhm.
Like I never saw the one near the bench.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. So, you know, and that needs to be independent because that's so far away from the others.
Mhm.
I don't, you know, we aren't applying any pesticides or anything there, and so I, you know, unless they get some
The
disease.
flags might be enough, as we were saying, either, you know, a flag or a.
A flag and just kind of a heads up to public works.
Yeah, there are that many people that know, there's only one.
And we
two
can
guys.
certainly get another sign for that other anthill. We only have the one, I think, Mike, we only put the one in.
So,
Did we do the one near the bench?
there's there's two anthill signs, one on each side of the path.
Oh, okay. Yes, so I haven't ordered.
One near the birdhouse that I need to get the right opening to clean it out, so we can get bluebirds in there, if I keep forgetting.
So,
to get the-
as far as signs, what do you have,
I have, and I'm just checking
in
my
terms of
camera.
what we need?
Uh,
The noise sign?
The noise sign is being written up, a trail closed conservation area about this
Oh,
big.
you're gonna do that, for me?
Yes,
Okay.
and I do have, and I told him we were going to connect today, I don't know, he was traveling. I do have triangles about this big, or squares, leaving Old Line open space
Yeah.
and, what was the other one? Something, another one of these signs, that are only this big that he could also put up.
Okay.
And Anne did reach out to me with a question about Anna Holland.
So let me,
All right, that's off. But I think
no, I want to just stop for a second, then you can continue. Just as a background, Andrea had been walking with Anna Howe, who owns some abutting land to our McCulloch property. And we actually did a number of land swaps between her, the Abrahamsons, and Dave McCulloch's property when we were assembling the various pieces to McCulloch. And Dave had owned half of a pond that is, I don't know what direction it is, a little bit downstream from Jimmy's pond. Actually quite nice pond. And Anna was worried about if that was part of the public property, people would go down in there swim because it's a swimmable pond. And also the other issue with that pond is that there's an actual dam on there that needs to be inspected and maintained periodically. And we were not interested in assuming that responsibility. So we did some land swaps. But since then, I guess Anna's been concerned that people might be going down in there. It's private property, you know, and people that were coming to McCulloch property really shouldn't be down there. So she expressed a concern to Andrew, so that's what we've been following up on. So there's a spur road. There's a lot of different walking roads in there and spur roads. And there's a spur road that Jim Mildren was doing to go down into there to around the dam where he was doing some work with his equipment. So we were talking about maybe putting some type of fence. And I'll let you go ahead, Andrew.
So Wayne is abreast of that, and he was asking me about, so we want a 6x6 pressure treated, you know, this, it's like, whatever you think is best. I defer to him, but I'm not so I have the box from Alex from DeMaco in my car, just in case I see him on the road or drive up on McCulloch with, like, I have the signs, and I'm going to see Anna Friday, actually, so I'll give her some signs just in case she sees Wayne first, so I've got all my bases covered.
Okay.
But then Anna was mentioning another trail, which I think it may be the same trail she's talking about. When you come in from the parking area and head to Rooks Meadow, there's a trail that goes back to the farm near the lakes on the right before you get to the meadow. And that's the way we like to access the trails, but also the way people like to access our property. So we would be very happy if the trail was closed to the public and very grateful if we could be grandfathered in for access to these trails.
Yeah.
But I think that's the same,
I believe it's the same one.
I think it is
I
the
think
same trail that,
It's a roadway, and I had mentioned that multiple times in the past, that I think what we did was just throw some branches of stuff across there, which is really kind of a half measure.
yeah.
And there is another, when you go down to the dam and go to the right of to the dam or the rocks and things that hold water in Jimmy's Pond, you can go down to the right there, but I don't think people go down there. This other one could legitimately
Yeah.
mistake that for a trail and go down there, so I hope that'll be solved with the gate. And again, if Wayne has to get the 6x6 or whatever, we'll be happy to give us a receipt and we'll pay for that.
Sure. So we have 2 signs, and I can order more anthill signs, at least one more by the big one, in the making. The noise trailhead sign to go at Ames Family open space, and then the closed trail sign.
So while we're jumping around a little bit, while we're mentioning signs, Michael and I attended Harbor Management's meeting last night, and among the things that was expressed to us was some dissatisfaction with the current signs. I guess one of them is kind of deteriorating a little bit.
This is the parking sign?
Yes, the parking signs, yeah. So we could have a sign in our standard green and white saying Horseneck Creek Landing visitor parking and get 2 of those. What do you think, Michael?
I just think you need to see park here, something like that,
Parking.
something simple. We've got 4x4 posts, 4 of them.
Yeah.
So once we figure out where the parking is going to go.
Yeah. I have
They should be higher.
I have a 12-foot
level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a 12-foot post. You can cut it into 6-foot length.
There you go.
Put a couple feet in the ground and have it 4 feet high.
I think we have 2 parking spaces. Once we figure out where they are in relation to the turning circle, you just put them in, once we put the gravel down or whatever.
Can you order 2 just say visitor parking signs, the green and white, Andrew? And maybe have them do,
Like the regular, like the speed limit sign.
yeah.
And in not, so white with green letters or green?
No, the green, just the same green as all our signs with the white lettering.
Oh, okay.
Just
So
a
that's
visitor
the,
parking, just kind of matching our theme.
Okay.
And if they could put at the top and the bottom holes for screws, and we could mount it on those boards.
Look.
What else do we want to talk about? Did you want to talk about any of the other?
Well, one of the rerouting pieces on the Cullick off of Flat Rock is for the Habitat of Humanity. And we can't do anything until Habitat gets the deeds, the leases, and da-da-da-da. So Mike Fogliano just got back from Italy, so he's approachable now, but I don't know where that's at. My Fred was saying.
We actually don't need to really wait for that. I mean, we know we have to do that, and we know that they're going to get the property. I believe that Dick Gates surveyed that. So the main thing for us to determine, and I could certainly have Dick go out there and remark it, is what's the property line for those 2 building envelopes, and what will our new property line be, and we can see just what portion of the trail does in fact encroach or go across that new bit of property.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So once he does that, then we could have a full work party to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we just get that done and then we don't have to worry about it. It'll be affordable housing we'll deal with from then on.
All right, so it falls in our card then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give Dick Gates a call and see if he's identified it, and if not, if he can go just put some stakes in, kind of like he did at Horseneck Creek, identifying where the right of way was for the parking areas. The other property I wanted to bring up is Bartholomew with the flooding. So I have a lot of images and information from Nancy Merrick. I'm going to contact Alex and see if he can stitch them together and give us a sense of exactly what's going on in there. So and hopefully he can do that, and then we can basically determine if we want to try to do a bridge, or we want to try to reroute the trail to kind of go along the roadway and then come in. Because if you go to the property boundary that's farthest from the railroad, it becomes dry in there, and the land goes up pretty quickly, and that's the side of the waterway that you get to by the bridge anyway. So, but we do have a Boy Scout that was interested in doing that. Do you have, or would Evan have the name of the Girl Scout that came up with the Hurricane Bridge?
I do.
Okay.
Her name is Allie Kyle.
Yeah.
She's home at the moment because she's a rising junior at Yale, so she's more or less home.
Do you think it would be helpful for him to just look at what she did? And number one, he'd give him an idea of what she had planned. And number two, would give him an idea what not to do, because her plan was turned down by inland wetlands.
Well, one plan was turned down because it required more heavy equipment, but that may not be viable. I think you have to wait to see what Alex says.
Yeah.
And the scout was also willing to help in rerouting.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe
let's do that. I'll contact Alex and have him look at that. And so I'm kind of jumping around here. I realize that, but you have a lot of stuff from Nancy as well.
Well, I do. In fact, I was just emailing her quickly because I went to my mailbox today finally, and I still haven't received a drive from her, which is a little
we should
strange.
go up and recall
She
that.
was going to email me a USB drive.
Okay.
Because the file,
It wouldn't be in our mailbox downstairs, would it?
I was pretty clear when she
Let's
responded.
check before we leave. I have a key to get in.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay.
Because, the Dropbox situation, my Dropbox account doesn't have any more storage, and, I thought I would have to purchase more storage in order to be able to access the files that she has, made available through Dropbox.
Just to give you an idea, I didn't actually look that closely at the Fair Danny stuff, but the Bartholomew stuff that Nancy sent me was 65 gigabytes.
Yeah, they're big, Anybody mind if I crack a window?
Not at all.
Yeah, so, and it's easier to have them kind of that way anyway, I think. Hopefully it's downstairs. I don't know. I thought she and I had communicated that it would be best to do it that way to my office, because I can't always get here when it's like, open and blah, blah, blah. But anyway.
One of the issues is that the ideal solution would be if Nancy analyzed her own data. And I think she could do that well. The problem with her is that she's got a number of full-time jobs. It's not the easiest thing to communicate with her. And as Ann says, people skills aren't her forte.
Right, I mean, it's just not always to communicate and get communicated back to and feel like you're on the same page. But she's, been able to get these files together for us, and, if you're reaching out to either Alex or who's this young woman, what's the junior, Andrea? Allie. Oh,
I have a copy of her bridge design,
Oh,
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but, so she's not a GIS person?
No.
Oh, okay, so Alex would be the person to talk to about the files.
he's one person. I think ideally, whoever we have to be a cartographer I hope can also help us with that, because the ArcGIS data is what's used in to create shape files,
Right.
which is what Lisa Nicolai used to basically draw up our maps and then resave them as PDF files for us.
I could also ask someone at CLCC.
That's what I think that's what I was going to do. I was going to reach out to you, Klein Clear, and some other folks and see if they know anybody that would be interested, that does work for conservation groups that would, give us a fair price and be willing to work with us.
Okay.
And whatever I come up with, Karen, I'll certainly share with you guys.
Okay, perfect.
I can also give it a shot. I've done some stuff with GIS, but not like an expert.
Nancy was telling me there's two versions, like a lot of things. I don't know what the software is. She said there's ArcGIS Soft, which is basically either free or minimally expensive, and then there's ArcGIS Pro, which is, $500 or something
Well,
like that.
and the free one is still a big, you have to have a lot of space on your computer
Yeah.
in order to use it. And so I had to do something about my computer situation anyway, but I now have a computer that could potentially at least view those files, which is why I'm doing that, so that I'll have to do that.
I just had a new computer delivered today too. Crossing my fingers because I'm getting almost daily blue screen crashes on my old one. So I might load that as well. But the other issue too, Ann, is I used to use Photoshop at work. I use Photoshop Elements, and even the Photoshop Lite, like Elements, certainly has a learning curve on it.
Oh, that's my problem. It's like, I was like, okay, well, I'll look at these files. It's a challenge, and, it's not perhaps always the best use of our time. If somebody has skills that they could do it more efficiently.
The last thing I wanted to mention, getting back to Bartholomew, is I talked to Mike Callahan. So we have a beaver. This is the road right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the beaver deceiver as it presently is there. And there were two wings on either end of it that were knocked off by Public Works when they were cleaning out debris last year. So I meant to ask Callahan, can it work without those? He says, oh, absolutely. He says, those are basically to prevent debris from coming around and creating it there, but so much debris was in there that it didn't do the work. I asked him if he'd be down in Connecticut anytime soon. He says he may, and if he says if he is in Connecticut in June or July, he'll go there and repair it for us. But he says it should work fine as is. And again, you kind of have to periodically go there and clean out the debris and brush in there so the water keeps flowing freely. The good part is there's definitely considerable beaver activity in Bartholomew, but I think it's quite a bit upstream from the roadway, upstream from the roadway.
So it's not connected to the flooding issue on our...
Oh, it is definitely connected to the flooding issue. So they have dams, and if you look, going away from the roadway, there's quite a pond. Their dams are backing up a lot of water, the pond, and it's coming down. So it's flooding the lower area. So they are with all the water that we had, the rain that we had, I think we had a pretty sizable pond going in there. You can see actually near where the bridge was, you can see a number of the trees that they've toppled over. And something that we can consider when we look at it holistically, but Andrea's husband Fred actually had interesting ideas. The trees that the beavers knocked over could actually serve as braces going across that waterway, just to cross pieces on to make a bridge too. So we definitely have some lumberjacks working there. They didn't just raw material.
Beaver for hire.
Yeah. And I also asked Mike Callahan. Mike Callahan runs for those of you who are not familiar, runs a company called Beaver Solutions, and he basically works all around Connecticut and Massachusetts for people that are having problems with beavers, flooding their property or whatever. And I asked him, I said, we had a significant pond in Ames, and it looked like something happened, and it broke loose, and a lot of the water drained from there. And he said that there were probably he thought there was two possibilities. Number one is that there was a lot of water, the water pressure was such that it blew out the beaver dam. He said that's the least likely alternative. He said he would more likely suspect that somebody went in there and broke the dam apart, which has definitely happened to us a couple times in the past. So, again, that's it.
Do you think he would be interested or would you be interested in having him do a presentation, like at the library or something, to sort of educate people a little bit about beavers? Or maybe there's somebody else who'd be better, but just do we want to think about better education around beavers?
That's an excellent idea. There was a woman that did a presentation for, I think it was the Farmington River Group or something. I attended online about 2 years ago. She was really excellent. I can see if I can find her name and find out what she might cost. That would be kind of a fun thing to do. I know that
not sure we'll get the right people there, unfortunately. We're preaching to the choir over here, but, maybe if people, if some of the folks that are inclined to, frown upon beaver activity and maybe do something about it, negative, maybe if their neighbors are more supportive of beavers, I think the better information we have out there.
There was also, I don't think it would be necessarily the right person, but the person he went to see.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. So Andrea and I and Evan and Fred Patton, a number of us went up to R.J. Julie in Middletown. There was a woman that had written a book about beavers, and I think that R.J. Julie was stunned at the turnout they had. They had to keep bringing out chairs and chairs. I would say there was a good close to 100 people there. I was shocked at the size of the crowd, and so frankly, so was the store. I think they were kind of oversubscribed. So there's definitely interest in beavers. And I think we could probably draw a good regional audience for something like that. Maybe consider if it's something we might want to do in the town hall or something to do in conjunction with the library, somewhat like the Conservation Commission, so we could actually even do it with them and maybe with you guys at tree group sponsorship.
We normally do a speaker at the annual meeting, but that's now not again until March, so that might be either a follow-up to,
goodness knows you guys have had issues with beavers.
Yes, we have.
A little bit south of the pond. So, in fact, beavers are recurrent enough project that Andrew was kind enough to I don't know if we chipped in or not, or you had to pay for it, but she provided a copy of that publication to the first select woman.
Yeah.
I don't know if she read it or not.
The author's name?
Phillips, is it?
I don't remember offhand.
I don't remember either.
But I have the book. I have a copy.
I have a copy too.
Sure. You might get to it before me. My list is like this. Community copy.
So, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about the property, Sandra?
I don't think so. Did you have any? Peter took you out on a couple before he left town, and you have some, do you feel you have some direction enough from him?
I'm starting to get my bearings. I think once I understand the properties better and the land better, I'm gonna have more ideas of what to do about all the problems.
And in the interim, I think if for any one of us, if you say, hey, I'm gonna hike, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, you could just throw it out there because we also know the land, the properties, and could walk you around.
Okay.
Actually, I do have one other thing to say. The yellow trail off of McCulloch from Flat Rock. I mentioned that it was a lollipop trail. In other words, there's a yellow trail that goes off the red, and it goes down over a stream with a big pipe, and it, you see it at the there's a cedar grove that we had cleared at one point with the potential parking lot. Then you go down to where, next to Ned Pfeiffer's place, onto Whippoorwill. You know where I'm talking about?
Exactly.
All right, well, right at that top, instead of going all the way down to the road, there's a little hook to the left. And it loops around.
Hook to the left as you're facing Whippoorwill?
Correct. And it loops around and it comes back. And I took Peter on it, and he had said, oh my God, this is so cool, I've never been here. And I took photos of vernal pools on there.
And that's our property, it's not, doesn't go into Ned's.
My friend and I went, I have the maps. We went downstairs, and it's actually in my car. So yes, that is our property.
That would be great if you want to make
So
it
that
there.
would be something I could show you, and Peter knows of it, and I have the yellow triangular signs that could be nailed up.
Great. Cool. The interesting thing about we were thinking about putting a parking area up there. We actually, I think, inadvertently antagonized Ned Pfeiffer because we had the state archaeologists from Yukon come in and dig up there to find out if there was any Native American artifacts, if we were going to have Jim Mildred kind of do a little bulldozing and flatten the area for a parking area. He was saying, well, you know, I'm the not archaeologist, I'm the town historian and the expert, you know, in Native American. You should have had me do it. So, whatever. So they did not find anything really in there. So that wasn't considered. Even though that whole area, McCulloch and Ames, is a pretty sizable area. It's considered an area of I forgot the term they used. Higher sensitivity that they know was well occupied for many hundreds, if not thousands of years. There was nothing in that particular one spot. And do you want to talk about Fair Landing?
Sure. So actually this morning, Isaac and I went down to Fair Landing and checked in on things. Peter has been watering for us for the past week or so. I was out of town a couple of different times and so we were able to get down, which is great. Things are looking good. I was glad we were there watering today. The soil is definitely dry around some places, especially, you know, where we've opened up and there's a good amount of sun, which is good, but then you lose moisture, obviously. So, and I guess also the biggest thing that we noticed was a lot of encroachment from, you know, the other invasive vines and the, you know, briars and things that are coming in, you know, and getting into the cages in some cases for some of our new plantings. So, and as well as just the access paths through the property to get to what you need to water are quite overgrown. And so we talked a little bit about equipment and, clearing access, we're not creating trails, we're just making it so it's safe and navigable to get to the plants that need watering. And so we talked a little bit about getting Isaac some equipment or access to it and where that would be stored.
So that's an interesting issue. Let me kind of tell you a little bit what I was.
I don't know.
And the first aid kit.
Yeah.
That's the first aid kit.
Yeah.
One takeaway.
So we're jumping around a little bit, but one of the reasons that Michael and I attend harbor management is they were saying that the property had been a little bit overgrown, and everything's just growing so fast now. So I actually went down there and coincidentally met Isaac and Peter down there, and Public Works had Brian and Richard were down there mowing. And I asked them if they could mow around the parking areas, which they were going to do. And I touched base with Ed Adante, and he said, they go down there every couple of weeks to mow around the firewall. And he says, I can have them do that as well. So I would have them mow along the side of the road on the stretch of the driveway the town owns and around the parking areas. But that still leaves the trail itself. Most of our trails, if they get enough foot traffic, they're pretty well have a clear pathway. Yeah. This one, I don't think it gets enough traffic, and Michael Barnes is saying there's poison ivy growing through the trail, whatever.
Trail's only 6 feet wide.
So one of the things I was thinking about would be to buy some open space equipment. One of the things would be an electric string trimmer. So the thing I wanted to do is touch base with, I'm not sure who in Town Hall, Eric Olson, who's the facility manager or whatever, to find out if we do that, if we can put some type of, when I used to work for the state government, there was like inventory tags that you put on equipment. See if there's a whole line inventory tag that you put on the equipment, and come up with a form where we give that to Isaac to use. Isaac signs that he recognizes he'll take care of it to the best of his ability, and it's the town of Oak Line property, and should he leave service, he'll be paid to us, or something like that. So I think a string trimmer for a couple $100 is definitely a worthwhile investment.
Yep.
So what were you thinking for equipment?
The possibility of a string trimmer, but also even just more basically some good work gloves, loppers, a couple of Felcos. That'd be good. I can actually donate the loppers that I gave you today. So I went after we got set up and I started on the watering protocol. I went back to my house and got some of my stuff and brought it down for him because there were a couple of things that needed immediate attention. Mm-hmm. One of them being a grapevine that was going up to a locust that was, barely hanging in there. Like it had already been topped, and then had one long branch that kind of was going to hang right over that sort of low area that's pretty wet where the ginger didn't do well. It's right next to the edge of the pond there, so it's pretty early on in your access onto the property. If that grape were to keep going and pull that down, it would be it's a big tree, and it would be a real access issue and potentially take out some of the things that we have planted there. So they said, well, at the very least today, let's cut that grapevine. But it may need to be revisited with Peter to figure out how to address.
And we did talk at one point, and we could certainly continue those discussions of having a tree company come in there and do some work.
Right. I think that is worth considering because there's another, as you go up towards where the blueberries are now, we couldn't even get through. We had to sort of get part of the briar curtain because an Atlantis, which had probably been dead already, had snapped and had taken with it, you know, because there was some live vegetation as well as the briars and the yuck. I think there was something like a spice bush or something going on there, so it was really like right dense. And you know, that should really be moved. That should really get hauled over and up. And it's already snapped off, but it's probably a two-person job at least. I'm not sure that's the right way to go about it would be, but it should be easier to go down there with Isaac and take a look and make a game plan on those two trees.
Well, perhaps when Save the Tree looks at Barbizon, if they give us a heads up, they could take a look.
We can have them go in there separately, yeah.
All right, well, they could give us a quote in a portable tree.
Right.
Is advertising the way they, I guess I've now noticed it more in the newspaper, they could also be called.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly enough.
Yeah, the companies that we work, Save a Tree gave us a great quote for the Barbizon. Affordable Tree did work for us for free on Horseneck Creek. We were the two companies. Evan also talked to Yankee Tree, which is in town, and he actually went and visited the Barbizon and was giving Evan advice about, he didn't think the branches were likely to, except for the ones over the trail. The oak branches are pretty sturdy and they stay up for quite a long time. And there's Middlesex Tree. Who does a lot of work in town, and Wayne really likes it. Wayne's good friends with Derek Ballard, who's the operator of that.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, I'll see if I can get them to come and get, I don't know if we need free bids, but,
I'm going to contact Peter Edmondson tomorrow, tell him to go ahead on the Barbizon.
Okay.
And I will tell him that you'd like to talk to him.
okay, good.
He's in town, maybe you can arrange to meet.
I'd like to have some input from, you know, Evan or Mike or anybody else who feels that they want to weigh in on tree management. Because,
Sure. Well,
Fred Derringer too.
Yeah. Fred and Evan, I was going to say Fred and Evan are our tree guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we cut a lot of, we girdled a lot of Atlantis. So maybe they're all going to be snapping.
It's going to start.
Because it's not a strong wood, and then we never really decided what to do about all the other. I mean, there's at least as many Atlantis that are still growing, but we don't have these little mouse trails into.
Right. So, you know, I mean, that's kind of something to maybe a forest management plan would be helpful at this juncture to sort of decide, because if we keep girdling and killing the Atlantis, not only are we going to have to wonder, you know, how long it's going to be before they'll start falling down, but the canopy is really going to open up a lot, and you know,
you're going to get a burst of growth.
It's a jungle in there. Let's just put it that way.
When we were cutting it, the stuff that I found most difficult to deal with, obviously, it's the wild rose in there.
The rose and the, what I call bear briar or whatever.
It's hard to even get into the rose to find out where you want to cut close to the ground.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of hack away even to get to the base of the stuff.
Yeah.
Karen, can I ask you a quick question? I'm kind of curious. What do you guys do with your volunteers in terms of they use their own equipment on the trails if they have to do stuff, or chainsaws and things like that?
I don't know what I think the trust has some equipment, because one of the perks with the Whippoorwill house now is that we'll have the garage to keep tools in it. Where right now I think a lot of them Dee has, and I'm not sure whether they were her tools or if they were land trust purchase. I don't know.
John, I forget his last name, but
Ann's husband? Yeah, John
Latham, he has a certification and he went through training. So I think it's just, in the past. I don't know who is presently.
I think after, the one meeting that we had talked about the surrogation, I kind of threw that out in there and said, so by the way, are we, and, they had said yes, and I can't remember now who they named, but they were specific, there were at least 2 other people on board that were trained.
And the Lime Land Trust, they're not. They rely on their volunteers to do what the volunteers could do and just passersby, and some people go with clippers in their pocket and other people do chainsaws and some of the bike people, so it's
Chainsaw in their pocket.
well, I mean, they have, some have the chainsaw and others have loafers and those things.
I think that the work party has, the protocols that no one's out there alone, that there's people there,
Right.
the kind of common sense measure.
Right.
I know Evan went through a course that he highly recommend. I forgot what it was called.
We have it down listed and.
In any
Peter
event,
was
I ended up
attempting go
talking to the guy that was the organizer, and also he actually does some of the classrooms himself. He actually unfortunately did a program in Lyme late this past winter, and he says, I don't really have any other schedules down in southeast Connecticut
Yeah.
for a while. I said, well, let me know when you do one, and we'd love to I'd love to send you and Peter to that.
The people at this summit were saying some of them took that class and they know what they didn't know, and after taking the class, they knew what they didn't know even more, and they said, I'm not doing it. I appreciate the training, but I appreciate just how scary, technical, and, sometimes unpredictable. You cut it this way after learning that the tree's leaning that way, and then boom, it goes this way, So, and then there was a debate as to electric versus battery or something, and, there was a big sidebar. We had so it's a worthwhile course, though. A lot of people had mentioned it. It's valuable.
There was definitely some issues with a chainsaw. When you're taking down a tree, it takes a certain amount of skill to know where that tree's going to end up. And the second thing is when you're cutting something, depending on the physics or whatever, your saw can get bound in a tree pretty easily, and then you could have some problems getting it out or having it stuck. All set? You leaving?
And we're done, but
Okay.
the DTC's coming in.
Yes, they are.
So don't worry about the door, Mark is downstairs, and Mark is coming back, so
Okay.
there's enough.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So just in terms of other equipment, Greg, you had sent me that pump, information on that pump, and, as we've agreed, the problem is that there's so much gunk, for lack of a better word, in the pond, that any kind of a pump would probably get,
So we were talking
clogged up
about
pretty thoroughly.
be ideal to just put a hose into the pond and then fill some pails up. There are a lot of different hand pumps, but all of them talk about one of the issues is if you start to suck up leaves and debris and stuff, they get clogged up with the filters, and it becomes more of a headache than it's worth.
So, Isaac and I today were filling at the pond, where those little steps are that go down the way Nick, our intern last year, did. But I know Peter's preferred method was to take the watering vessels home with him and then arrive with them filled. But the fact of the matter is, unless we got like 10 of them, that's not going to, if you fill up those 2, you're not going to have enough for the whole site. So, and it doesn't, it remains to be seen what kind of summer we're going to have. It could be a wet summer, I don't want to say it, but the plant would be good for the plants, but it's not an ideal situation.
Would a rain barrel of some sort, we can't hook into a gutter, but would a barrel of some sort be with a lower spigot?
Probably worth exploring, for sure. There's a couple of areas that have enough of a, open sky. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, but what you could do though is, I have rain barrels that I got from Todd, they're relevant, they were like 50 or 60 bucks each, and obviously if you've got gutters and things, they fill up instantaneously, but if you had a hose and you monitored the pump, you could easily fill up these 55-gallon things at critical locations,
And they have a screen on top, so you don't get
Right.
drowned
Now,
out. critters.
the one thing is, that I think that they do pose a mosquito issue.
That's what I was thinking.
But, and today, the other thing I gave out for was the bug repellent because that's why I have arrived.
The screens on, at least the ones I purchased, are too small. I don't have any trouble with.
The thing about a rain barrel though, is if you have a rain barrel, like in a field or at this property, good rainfall is like maybe an inch of rain,
Yeah.
that's not much.
No, what
rain.
I'm saying is,
But
in
it's much
combination
different.
with a pump.
Yeah.
So that if you
Yeah,
had,
also, the ones for the house, you say you're catching that whole area and
but
pumping
you
it
could,
down.
if you had a hand pump or something with,
Yeah.
you develop a bucket, then you put your, the intake inside a secondary bucket, you'd fill the the 55 gallons in 10 minutes.
But you still have the clogging issue.
You would.
For the pump.
So but if you left it there permanently, but if you're only gonna fill 55 gallons, it's better than carrying
Okay.
10 5-gallon pails.
Right, right. Well, for that matter, if we have, somebody has a truck or a proper vehicle, we could just fill it up at my house and drive it. And it'll last a while.
Yeah.
And then parked by the kiosk sign and then,
Yeah, I mean, getting the
You can drive.
55 gallons of water
You
into the
can't lift it,
pipe.
you can't lift it,
You
or
really
get it off,
can't?
no, it's too heavy.
A
A gallon of water is 9 pounds,
Yeah,
times
I thought-
55,
Okay.
you can't budget.
Okay.
That's why I'm thinking you have, say you have 2 or 3 of them critically located near where you're getting water.
Hmm.
You temporarily have a hose and you really spend an hour or less, I'd say 15 minutes, you fill up 55 gallons, because the pump's gonna pump 3 gallons a minute,
Okay.
10 minutes, full.
Well,
You're talking about a battery pump then, or?
It could be a battery pump,
Yeah.
I haven't really looked at them. I suspect they have really decent battery pumps,
I mean, my other question was, the Deep has its well on the property right outside where we go in. And I don't know if there's any way to access water there, whether it's, the well cap might be something that's just, not even movable or something. I don't know.
It might be worth
Could ask.
just asking and saying
Yeah.
that we're doing plantings and we want to
Yeah,
make sure they make it through the dry parts of the summer, gave ice.
Right.
We could do the water.
right.
Maybe if you would have a pump, we could use.
Yeah. Mm. So, trying to think what else about, Ferry Landing.
Of course, you found the spotted turtle, right?
No, we did not. And the one mayapple that's up there, it looks terrible now. It's got some kind of yellow spots all over it. It's terrible, so, I don't know. It's, that's a favorite turtle. I don't know.
Is the sprag starting to sprout up?
There, I do not see any flag spray, and I took some pictures
The
of the
treatment
last,
may still be in the soil.
the what?
The treatment from the.
Right, right.
Still in the soil and hindering it.
And we're doing.
Well, it's not supposed to stay in the soil, but anyway. I did see cattails. I actually
Oh
saw
my goodness.
some new
Wow.
evidence of growing cattails, and we saw a bunch of other fun things, and wild garlic. The digitalis is going crazy down there. And, yeah. So,
One of the other things I thought we should do there is focus on maybe making an area where all of our turtles could lay eggs.
oh, well,
Especially if there's a spotted turtle there. I think
Well,
something like
What would that be, like a beach, Michael, or what?
Exactly, where they're coming up over the little stone and stairs and
right.
on the deep side there,
Right,
but, you just,
Well, they come up on the other side they go right through Maria's yard, and they cross the road, and they come and lay eggs in my yard.
Oh, my goodness.
We're snappers.
Lots of
We're not-
snappers are out.
nothing,
I just crossed the road with
Yeah.
one, and there was another one that laid eggs up at the top of Johnny Cave that were all busted open. I think they were probably raccoons.
Yeah.
Favorite.
Anyway, so that's pretty much it, except I mentioned to Isaac that I've been taking photographs of some of these, native volunteers that are coming up. And I'd really love to work on, over the summer, updating the website with some progress.
Yep, absolutely.
Good things happening at Ferry Landing.
Mhm.
And with images.
The website needs a lot of work, and I need to touch base with Katie because I've sent her a number of things. I was told by Martha that we only have Wednesdays to work on websites. So I've sent her a couple things for website Wednesdays that haven't got there. Did you send her the happy hour stuff?
I did. She was out of town until today.
I know she was out Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, and, or out, and I followed up with Michelle. I called and left her a voice message, just to see where she's at, knowing that she's coming back, hitting the ground running, but,
So,
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Any update with the videos and Emily and?
No, it's mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa. It's all me. Evan gave me some text, but I've been kind of massaging it and fleshing it out in some ways to relate a little better to the actual footage that we have. He gave me some basic information on the animals that are in each of the different videos that we have organized, and I feel terrible that I did reach out to Emily, maybe a couple of weeks ago and said, I'm still here. I haven't forgotten you. And she gets it, and hopefully I can actually just send her a couple of these narratives to dub in. And then the question is, do we want music? But anyway, it would be great to go ahead and move forward on that, and I'm hoping that's going to happen very soon.
And I guess a follow-up to the website needing updating the videos, the QR at the AIM does not translate.
what do you mean?
You get, I don't believe that it goes to the video link anymore.
Yeah, there's a number of issues in there. One of the issues too with Ames is we have about 3 different names for Ames. There, Ames Open Space, Ames Family, Deborah and Edward, which Steve prefers. So maybe we'll just stick to that one. There's a lot of different updates that need to be done from when we migrated that we never got to. That's one of the things I want to really work on this summer. Getting to Horseneck Creek, we talked about that a little bit. Michael and I are meeting with Michael Barnes and Sloan Danaher Friday morning. You're welcome to meet us if you want. They're going to show us roughly where the roadway that kayakers would take would lead through the property to where the dock lift station is going to be. So there's going to some type of driveway towards the dock with a turnaround, and you come back out. And I want to find out where that is to find out if our parking areas can stay where they are, if they need to be moved. And also, I want to start working on the Rockfall grant. If we're going to be bulldozing through one spot, I'm not going to make a little sign. Here's a nice little blueberry bush, and we end up bulldozing it out. So, I frankly have no idea where this roadway is going to go. I mentioned at the meeting that I want to stay involved with the placement of that because I would like it to have minimal impact on the coastal forest in there if possible. So we shall see.
What time tomorrow?
8:30 Friday morning.
It's not tomorrow, Friday. Okay.
Yeah, they've not submitted an application to DEEP yet.
They have not submitted an application to the Board of Selectmen who has to approve it and sign it.
And then we will theoretically get a copy, and both Greg and I feel that it's not going to be a seat of the pants design. I mean, Michael Barnes referred to the plan that they used to locate the trail. If you remember that one that was soundly criticized by our surveyors, that didn't have a scale, north arrow, wasn't done by a registered surveyor or engineer. So Greg offered that we would help with that design and make sure that it's done right. I don't want something done on the back of an envelope that then doesn't work when you try to drive your car around and load your kayak. I want something that's, someone with some skill that's designed driveways or worked on these types of things. And we have a contact with an engineer, and we have a surveyor, and we've got some dollars to on the upland
we
for
will certainly have monies that we don't have spent, that we will not spend. And I offered to them that we would help them with paying for any additional surveys which are needed, which I don't think will be for a traffic engineer to plot out exactly how wide this roadway is, what kind of turning radius we need to turn around. Again, keeping it to the minimal possible, and also paying for any arborist work, because it's going to cut through to where the dock I believe is going to be located. There's certainly need to be some trees and taken down on Stump's ground too, so we can help them with that.
CLTC has survey money.
And then we would also, because we want to make a surface of the parking areas, once we know how they relate to the turning circle and how people are getting in, then you can relate, do we have to move parking areas before we put the gravel down? So it's like, you need a design for how it's going to be built, where it's going to go, before you start really spending significant dollars on locating stuff that can be impacted.
Yeah, I don't want to dump gravel and pave a parking area and then say, oh, we have to move that 20 feet because the road's going through here. So that's about it for that. One of the issues, do you have the agenda, Suzanne?
Oh, sure.
Look at it quickly. I don't have it in here. One of the issues I wanted to talk about today, but I will postpone for the July meeting, is the article that was in the Examiner. And I think I shared to all of you about how open space may be used to basically keep communities from bringing in new populations and so forth. Fred is very interested in discussing that, and Evan is very interested in discussing that because he's on the board of directors of the Lang Land Trust, which was basically the subject of a lot of that article. So I will postpone that, but that's a discussion I think we should have at our July meeting.
Denise has been working on that topic too, because my wife Denise, because there's really an attack at the state level on local zoning under the premise that, well, NIMBYism is really preventing affordable housing, and if you had no regulations to protect wetlands, or you could build almost anything anywhere, you would have lots of affordable housing. Well, it's just a false premise, because in the past, if you look at where certainly low-cost housing was put, it was the cheapest land in that municipality, so it was subject to flooding. It may have been a former swamp, and so the folks that then, lived in public housing, at least in the stuff that I was familiar with in Greenwich, tended to be flooded, or they're next to the transfer station or they had an incinerator. So that's where all your public housing was located, in the worst possible land, because it was the cheapest. And to be quite honest with you, developers use some of the changes in the statute to really force affordable housing on folks, which then disappears in 10 years. So let's say you have a development that's going to have 40 units, and a certain percentage, it might be 10%, 4 units, are going to be affordable. Well, of who tracks whether they stay affordable over a long period of time? And this town doesn't have the ability to track what we've approved on our land, and so there's certainly no one tracking whether or not a unit stays affordable. And then all the other units are, you know, because of the price of land, tend to be, you know, I mean, you can just look at what's happening to the shore. Most of us can't afford to buy land along the shore because you can't get insurance, flood insurance. It's just too expensive. But super rich who have 7 houses can, you know, build a nice big house right on the coast because they've got another house to go to if it gets destroyed. So there are other, zoning is not the reason. Even if you eliminate all of the requirements and let developers build in floodplains where our affordable housing is going to be, of what value is that to the, you know, the folks that are more sensitive to that type of impact from climate change? I mean, they should have access to open space and non-flooding land. You know, their house could be elevated, but then you got to get your car out before it floods right under your house. So there are a lot of ways to approach building affordable housing. And then they were coming up with a formula. Every town's got to have its certain number of units. Well, how about the towns that surround Hartford, for example, that provide the watershed for all the water, the city of Hartford? It's the MDC. Don't they get any credit for preserving all that open space with this clean water for, you know, the 120,000 people that live in Hartford get to drink, and then all the suburban areas around the city get the water from these towns that are, you know, not getting tremendous tax resources from that land. Mm-hmm. Isn't that worth something? Right. You know, so that, and then, you know, maybe there's a mechanism by which housing trusts can buy land and build affordable housing, you know, on good land.
Well, we have an Affordable Housing Commission to deal with that, and I know from experience from having a number of very serious discussions that Michael Foliano is a really sharp guy to head that, and I think he's got a good board with him, including Fred, Andrew Fred. So, and I'm happy to say that we did work with them. We certainly contributed our share in college, with 6 figures from our acquisition fund. So it's a top. We'll talk about that topic.
So, but it's interesting when you look at the forces that are driving a lot of the affordable housing are the home builders associations of the U.S. They're funding all this attack on local zoning. They aren't really interested necessarily, in my humble opinion, in providing affordable housing. It's the other 90%.
Let's segue into community outreach. Do you want to talk a little bit about the happy hour, Andrew?
Sure. I think it was pretty successful. There were 22 to 6 people, I believe, on the hike and more at the inn, and I think the appetizers were decent. I know that you got a bill, so
We did get an invoice to pay for our share, and it's been processed already. So, so we should be all set for September. And
we were able to. I think positive points of it is that it was well attended. There was, I think it requires, besides some publicity, just talking it up to say, are you going to come? Are you going to come? Are you going to come? And then you invite, you know, 3 neighbors, and Joe Meek had her family there, and so all of that little bit helps. And it's really outside of the happy hour geared for everybody, so one could just leave after the hike. And try to keep it timely and informative. And we were able to leave a little teaser for Ned Pfeiffer coming in September, which I believe is going to be the 15th of September, but that's to be determined. And the other thing I'd just like to say is to identify or talk about suggestions for our next Hikers Happy Hour, so we're not scrambling, and that work can be done in preparation for it. So you are September, and we are October, and then we have the other little...
It'd be nice to have some type of accommodation to deal with the water and maybe go to Bartholomew, which you've never done. That's perfect size for a 45-minute hike.
That would be ambitious, don't you think? I mean, I don't know, it's an impassable trail at this point.
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
only that.
That's true, but, you know.
I think it'd be hard to last 45 minutes before I thought.
And that's okay, because you stop, even if it's 20, if it's 15 in and 15 out, that's already 30. And then you stop, you help this one over the brush, and you stop and you talk, I think it's fine. It's just, and even on the longer trails, you could say, and if you continue here, you will, it's I think, to expose people to the trails. I don't think it's realistic to say that you could do the trails, because it would be like a very purposeful hike, and that's not what people are going for, in my opinion. But my other thought, I mean, we could project Bartholomew, but I think...
Yellow Trail?
Huh?
The Yellow Trail?
The Yellow Trail or Horseneck Creek.
That would be, I would hope by October we would have most of our work done in there. That would be fun. That would be
So that's,
not a long hike, but that would be a location where you could have numerous stops with people talking about what's there.
We could easily spend 45 minutes there.
Yeah.
At 3
How
spots.
about parking? Is there going to be enough?
There would be parking. Yeah, we could accommodate that.
could encourage carpooling, and I don't know if you could park across the street or along the road, or in the development across the way, or the golf course.
We could work something out. That's an interesting idea. So the other thing I wanted to mention for community outreach is we are getting our advanced planning is moving along for midsummer. We have Evan is arranged to get a tent from the Lang Land Trust to borrow it. The Lang Art Association is going to give us 3 tables and some chairs like last year. We are going to be on the grounds with you guys, but I guess you guys aren't doing the rafters this year?
No, we can't get the rafters. No one wants to come in the summer without us. It's just too hard.
Well, that's interesting though.
So we're doing
because
bugs. We have a bug collection, and we'll have our reptiles.
It's my impression that Gary Gregory wants to have somebody there with bats. So we shall see how.
We're not in our usual place by the door, because when we had said, we want a cooler space for owls, originally they threw us to the Torrey Respiratory Peterson place.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of worked it back, so we're back at Lyme Association of Lyme, but we're not up against the
Well,
building.
I think the rationale was that if you're going to have raptors or birds, it would be a fit for them. But it was my impression that the car show was there, and that was a paid admission to get in there. So I'm not sure how that would have left you.
And I think that's why you said, we're not going there, we're not going there. And so we ended up, but we're not on like the building side, we're on the street side.
Somebody actually jumped the fence there between Florence Grizzle and Audubon because the Lions were selling hot dogs, but you would have to pay admission to get in to buy a hot dog.
There's no fence, you can just...
Yeah, well, it's a brushway
I didn't
there.
know if they were doing the car show, and that's why they were putting
Yeah.
vendors there, because it would seem odd for them to put a vendor that no one...
We're going to be in a little different spot. We're going to be between the sidewalk and the road this year, but that was portrayed to me as maybe it'll be cooler because you'll have more air circulation.
Well, that's what they were saying.
That's where the Dell ice cream was, the Dell Ice was last year, I think, with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'll have to...
Bugs and reptiles.
Yeah, we had a couple of years ago, we had Claudio had his work
That's what
collection.
There's Claudio.
He's going to have yours?
That's reflected.
Yeah.
So we'll have to think about what we'll have at our booth. One of the things we did in the past is we had this the display that's actually the main meeting hall in the back corner of the room that Amanda put together, that's kind of badly needs to be refreshed. But we can think about that.
And Joan had thought that it might be
Yeah.
something to write up about each of the six, basically, maybe 7 now with Horseneck, properties with some brief paragraph of something unique, the ledges at Ames and the Beaver, the interactive screens or the videos and various plants at invasives, just to highlight what they are and where they are, because often people say, what, where are you? I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I want to try to do a couple little handout sheets too. So I think we can put together a good book. We can try to. Yeah, anybody know?
I have this, I don't know if it still works, but I have this digital photo frame, you know.
Well, that would be great, yeah.
And you
I
can
have one
run
of
a
those.
slideshow
Yeah,
on
that
it.
could be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
We got a couple of them.
Yeah.
You know, one for landing, one for something else.
Interesting idea.
And we've got a lot of pictures from the environmental
battery
battery.
power. Sure.
Extension cord.
Michael, do you have anything to talk about for planning or wetlands?
I don't.
Okay. So I would, new business, anybody want to bring? So I would ask to amend the agenda and ask if we could hold an executive session to talk about land acquisition. Get a motion to amend the agenda. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we will go into, do I have a motion to go into executive session? Second?
So that means.
I will see you next month.
That means Isaac, Karen, and Suzanne have to leave. And we will, and can you shut the recording off?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Thank you, Karen.
No problem.